But I do want to start the show with going back a few days to the news that Rob Gronkowski is unretiring, coming back to football, but not playing for the Patriots. He was under contract when he retired, so if he was to return, they have to be with the Patriots, or the Patriots have to grant him a trade, which they did. They traded him down to be with his buddy Tom Brady down there in Tampa. And it's interesting because a lot of the reaction, there's two things, and I want to get into both. The second thing I want to get into is what we kind of teased out before, about how the Buccaneers now should be Super Bowl favorites, or at least be the leaders in the NFC. And betting-wise, they are. So discuss why we should pump the brakes on that. But the other narrative or thought process I find interesting was that, people were starting to question Bill Belichick, maybe not even question, just start to declare this is the end of the Patriots. This is, now you start to see players wanting out, getting tired of Bill Belichick. Has his run basically come to an end? Has he run out of time? Every great coach sort of has their ending. Maybe the message is getting stale. And for the most part now you see, whether it's Tom Brady and now Rob Gronkowski, players don't want to play with him, and winning now doesn't mask all of the grueling grind that goes into playing with the Patriots and under Bill Belichick. And there's a lot of comparisons out there to Jerry Krause, which if you saw The Last Dance last Sunday night, Jerry Krause was the general manager of the Bulls during the 90s, and he was the one who essentially broke up the Bulls, maybe too early, maybe too, not early enough, but essentially, Jerry Krause got a lot of blame for the Bulls maybe not winning more or being the reason, Michael retired for those 18 months, and just got a lot of blame in general for maybe not capitalizing on what the Bulls had talent-wise and making life tough for everyone in that organization. And to me, I look at this trade, I look at Tom Brady leaving. For me, and this is a neutral observer as a Colts fan, I'm not a Patriots fan at all and would benefit like the 31 other teams would if the Patriots decline and just go into a spiral of 20 years of hell that most of us have witnessed one way or another rooting for our teams in the NFL. The future for me in New England is brighter. It is not bleaker. After Tom Brady leaving, after Gronk being traded, after basically this offseason where it's been only mostly negative attention towards the Patriots, I think their future is a lot brighter, to be honest, and here's why. So like you said, there was a sort of a mass exodus in New England this offseason. You had Tom Brady going to Tampa, Rob Gronkowski unretiring, getting traded to Tampa. You had a core guy like Nate Ebner on special teams, which is a guy basically the Patriots live and die on. These are the kind of guys that the Patriots way is founded upon. He's gone. Jamie Collins is gone. Kyle Van Noy is gone. But there's no need to panic because guess what? The Patriot way and the Patriots were not really built by one man, and they sure as hell won't be taken down by one man. And if you look at this offseason, at least, this is business as usual for the Patriots. I think about it. Bill Belichick's entire mindset, and part of the reason why he's been so successful for 2 decades, is that he'd rather cut a guy a year too early, right, where maybe he still had some time left on talent-wise or he still wasn't at his peak, than rather hold on to a guy a year or two too late and then have the decline happen or pay him too much money to where you can't get rid of him and have to play a guy that's not performing at his best. And we've seen this time and time again, whether it's trading Richard Seymour to the Raiders. He let Adam Vinatieri, think about this, he let Adam Vinatieri, who kicked 2 game-winning field goals in the Super Bowl to win the game, let him walk as a free agent. He spent more time as a Colt than as a Patriot, despite the fact that all his big kicks, we remember of Adam Vinatieri, came with the Patriots early on in his career. He walked as a free agent. They didn't re-sign Wes Welker when they had the chance to, and Wes Welker was maybe the hardest person to guard in all the NFL when him and Tom Brady linked up. They traded Logan Mankins to the Buccaneers while Logan Mankins was still at the prime of his career. They traded Chandler Jones to the Cardinals, and he's only gotten better. Chandler Jones had 19 sacks last year for the Cardinals. And the Patriots traded him back in 2016 when he was still very young and still developing and growing because they didn't want to pay him. So there's a trend here. Bill Belichick would rather get rid of you a year too early than a year too late. And all this happened in the offseason was Bill Belichick stayed business as usual. He got rid of Tom Brady. He didn't want to give Tom Brady $30 million or even more as a 50-year-old as a 43-year-old quarterback, right? He traded Gronkowski for a 4th-round pick who was retired and was never going to play for the Patriots again. There should be concern about the Patriot way if this was the opposite. If Bill Belichick catered to what Rob Gronkowski wanted. If he gave Tom Brady the $30+ million a year that he wanted. This is business as usual for the Patriots, and this is why and how they have stayed relevant and successful for 2 decades. Because they see a plan, they don't want to overpay guys, they don't want to get stuck salary cap-wise, and they continue to move on and reload. And part of how they reload in the draft. You look at 2020 draft, Bill Belichick now, after this Rob Gronkowski trade, has 13 draft picks. 13. He has a ton of ammo to improve the front seven and the offensive line. The secondary is great. Obviously, he needs some weapons on the outside as well, but the offensive line needs improvement. Offense needs improvement, and the front seven especially needs improvement. And if there's a guy that I trust that needs to rebuild some position groups significantly and build them through the draft, Bill Belichick's still that guy for me. I still trust him. I still trust what he wants, and there's no guy I'd rather have finding some hidden gems in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round than Bill Belichick. And now he has 13 cracks at it at least to try to get some impact players for the next few years. And finally, this is why at least I think the future is bright and not bleak if you're a Patriots fan in New England. Cap relief is on the horizon. This year, they are strapped. And if Tom Brady stayed, they'd even be in more trouble. But him leaving at least frees, at least doesn't have them over the barrel for $30 million a year. They have the least amount of cap space of all 32 teams entering the draft. I think it's just over $1 million to have right now. So they really can't even sign their full draft class worth of guys right now if they drafted all 13 players. But here's what's a positive sign. Next year, 2021, that number explodes over $100 million. They have one of the most, or they have some of the most cap space in all the NFL. So this year, they are extremely tight. The least amount of cap space in 2020. Next year, 2021, over $100 million of cap space. So, yeah, this year will probably be a reloading year for sure. I think that they'll take a step back. I think it's only natural. You move on from, the all-time greatest quarterback, despite his age. You have, again, when you don't have a lot of wiggle room cap-wise and you're relying on a lot of young players, especially in a Belichick system defensively, it's tough. I think the Bills are primed to win the division this year. And who knows with Jarrett Stidham? We don't know what he has. This for sure could be a rebuilding year. This could be an 8-8 kind of year. But let's not, kid ourselves. Going forward, you look at the future. It's still very bright and very promising. Cap space, draft picks, Bill Belichick has it all. And he is continuing to do business as usual. Despite panic being coming down, this is what Bill Belichick does. He doesn't pay older players. He doesn't cater to what their needs are. He prefers cheap young talent than experienced veteran talent that maybe is better than a young player, but doesn't want to pay the salary cap, doesn't want to be strapped down by that cap space. This is business as usual for the Patriots. And that's why I think their future definitely is bright, not bleak. Now, the one question mark I'll say is that especially drafting offensive weapons, whether it's tight end, whether it's receiver, Bill Belichick has struggled. Outside of Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez, it's been tough. He hasn't been able to find a Gronk replacement. Maybe you could even blame the Patriots for maybe believing that Gronk was going to come back next year, and that's why they didn't address it seriously. But they absolutely need help at the tight end this year. They need some receivers because, as you saw, Tom Brady, for most of his career, outside of, let's say, Randy Moss and Deion Branch, hasn't really thrown to many promising wide receivers, or many proven wide receivers, I should say. Most of the time, it's been the other way around. He's made them, not them make him, right? He's made Wes Welker a big threat. He helped make Julian Edelman one of the hardest guys in the league to cover. He made Chris Hogan a great receiver that, again, a lot of teams had trouble covering and got a nice deal from the Panthers in free agency last year. So that's been an area of concern that really Bill Belichick needs to improve and hit upon, whether it's this draft or next draft, because that's going to be key in helping the Patriots reload, get some weapons for whether it's Jarrett Stidham this year or if they draft a quarterback this year or trade for someone next year. They're going to need some weapons for sure. They can't just rely on what they did with Tom Brady and hope the quarterback makes those positions better. But I'll say this. I trust Bill Belichick. 13 draft picks this year. I think he will crush it and hit it out of the park, especially in a time where there's less in terms of number-wise that we see, whether it's the combine, whether it's the 40-yard dash, whether it's pro days, right? There's obviously some players didn't participate in the combine, didn't have a pro day, so there's a lot of unknown scouting-wise and numbers-wise this offseason that a lot of teams weren't able to get. I trust Bill Belichick, when information is limited, to really take advantage and find a lot of diamonds in the rough that maybe some coaches and players either aren't seeing or aren't trusting are going to be good enough. So I absolutely think that even if this year's a speed bump, but they take a step back, miss the playoffs, go 8-8, something like that, I think they are reloading to where 2021, 2022, 2023, still very promising, and things are looking bright, not bleak in New England. But I want to kind of also discuss from the Buccaneers angle, right? Because they also were the one who benefited from this Rob Gronkowski trade. And now you see a lot of hype, a lot of attention, a lot of money is getting backed by Tampa Bay to make a Super Bowl run. And now the question is, are they Super Bowl favorites? They have Tom Brady. who I still think has a lot of game left. I really do. I thought last year was more of a lack of offensive line protection and not being on the same page as receivers. So I think Tom Brady still has a lot left in the tank and will be a benefit for the Buccaneers. Rob Gronkowski now, he's obviously a reliable tight end. He has a familiarity now in Tampa Bay. He has one of the best wide receiver duos in all of the league with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. So now you look, I mean, the Buccaneers are looking pretty good here, right? They are looking like a legitimate team, and they're more importantly they're going all in. These Gronk trade signals, they are trying to do whatever they can these next 2 years to win a Super Bowl. And at least the Vegas odds are starting to back that. Because now after the Gronk trade, Tampa Bay is tied for the third best Super Bowl odds, right? It's Chiefs 1, Ravens 2, and then they are tied with San Francisco for the third best odds at 9-1. And obviously with those two teams, the Chiefs and the Ravens, in the AFC, that means the 49ers are tied for the best odds in the NFC to reach the Super Bowl again at 9-1. You have the Saints in their own division at 12-1. And even before this Gronk trade, Tampa Bay was 16-1 to win the Super Bowl. So obviously now their odds almost doubled with this Gronk trade. And this is why I think it's time to pump the brakes, at least right now, and at least to have the Buccaneers as Super Bowl favorites. I think they'll make the playoffs. I think they'll be a tough out for sure. But I'm not quite ready yet to put them as Super Bowl favorites. I'm not ready to put them at the top of a very, very crowded NFC. And it's one of the first reasons why I don't think that they should be a Super Bowl favorite right now. They shouldn't even really be a favorite in their own division. Look at the NFC South. The Saints had a 13-3 year. Had a very solid offseason coming off that 13-3 year. They didn't lose many impact players, and if they did, they already replaced those players. You lost Von Bell as a safety in free agency. You signed Malcolm Jenkins. They brought in Emmanuel Sanders coming off the Super Bowl run for the 49ers as a secondary weapon to Michael Thomas. I think they'll draft a receiver for sure. So now you can have improved and better weapons for Drew Brees, which I think is very important because I do think the last 2 years, we saw it especially 2 years ago, and last year with the thumb injury, I think helped Drew a little bit, but towards the end, you kind of see he ran out of steam. And Drew Brees being 41 years old, I think it's tough for him to maintain a full 16-game schedule at his peak and then also carry that into the playoffs. I think he's run out of steam. Last year, the Saints, the team around him, couldn't pick him up as they lose to the Vikings in the first round. I think it's very important for them to surround him with weapons outside of Michael Thomas and outside of Alvin Kamara to make it easier for Drew to at least lessen the burden on him. And not to mention, I'm not putting the Falcons above the Buccaneers. I'm not. I think the Saints and the Bucs are very close. I still give the nod to the Saints in the NFC South, but I think the Buccaneers have really significantly closed the gap. So I don't think the Falcons have even really a shot in hell to win the division. But this is what I'll say about the Falcons. They are trying to win, and they need to win this year. Dan Quinn, Thomas Dimitroff, head coach and general manager, are both on the hot seat. They need to basically make the playoffs this year or they're out. It's honestly kind of surprising that they even were allowed to come back this year. But they go sign Todd Gurley. You hear about them trading up. Maybe they got a cornerback to try to address a significant need in the draft. They're trying to win. They're going all in. So I'm not saying that the Falcons are going to win the division or maybe even be in the running for the division. But they're not a rollover team. They're not a guaranteed 2 wins on the schedule for the Buccaneers. This is going to be tough. This is going to be a tough division. Because I think even the Panthers are a scrappy team. Now you have a new regime coming in, starting really from the owner down. I don't think that the Panthers are going to tank their way to go 2-14 or 1-15. I think, bringing in Teddy Bridgewater, maybe they trade down, maybe get the best available player. If it's Isaiah Simmons, where they sit at number 7, it would be interesting. But I think that at least Panthers have, maybe like last year with the Cardinals, an ability to be a scrappy team. Not an easy out. You saw in the NFC West, it was very tough last year, and despite the Cardinals finishing last, they were no rollover team. They pushed both times the 49ers to the brink. They lost both games, but they pushed them tough both times. I think the Falcons could be, I think the Panthers could be that team this year, where there's not much talent there, but they're a scrappy bunch. They're still competent, and again, they're not a rollover 2 guaranteed win team for the Buccaneers. So which means the Falcons are trying to win. They'll be a tough out. The Saints, again, are 13-3 and only improved this offseason. The NFC South is going to be tough. So I think it's tough to put the Buccaneers at the top of the NFC when the NFC South is not even a lock, and I wouldn't even have them as the favorite in their own division. But Vegas, again, has them tied with the 49ers to be the best bet coming out of the NFC. Speaking of the NFC as a whole, it's a very deep conference. It's a very deep conference. Look at the AFC. It's very top-heavy. You have the Chiefs, who are great. Obviously, the Patriots now took a step down, but I would say it's the Chiefs and the Ravens at the top. NFC is not the case. You have 4, 5, 6 teams that could be bubbled up there at the top, and depending on the year, could win the AFC or get the first seed in the NFC.